My name is David, and I am 42 years old. I live in a small town with my daughter, Emma. Emma is 16 years old, full of life and energy. She's always been a bright and curious child, asking endless questions about the world around her. But lately, things have changed. Emma used to be the type of girl who loved spending time with me. We'd bake cookies together on weekends, talk about her favorite books, or go hiking in the nearby woods. But now, those moments feel like distant memories. She's distant, spends hours locked in her room, and is glued to her phone. When I try to ask her what's wrong, she just says, "Nothing, Dad," and walks away. Point one evening, I decided I couldn't ignore it anymore. It was 11 p.m., and she still wasn't home. My mind raced with worst case scenarios as I called her phone. No answer. I left her a voicemail, trying to stay calm, but my voice betrayed my worry. Finally, at midnight, the front door creaked open. Emma stepped inside, her hair messy, her face flushed. "Where were you?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Out," she replied, avoiding my gaze. "Out where?" I pressed, trying not to raise my voice. "Why do you always have to ask so many questions?" she snapped, her eyes filled with frustration. Before I could respond, she stormed off to her room and slammed the door. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the conversation in my mind, wondering where I had gone wrong. Was it something I said, something I did, or didn't do? I decided the next day I needed to approach things differently. At breakfast, I made her favorite pancakes and sat across from her at the table. "Emma," I said gently, "I know things have been tough lately. I just want to understand how I can help." She looked up from her plate, her eyes softening for a moment before hardening again. "You can't," she said quietly. "Maybe I can," I said, leaning forward, "but only if you let me in." She didn't say anything, but I noticed her shoulders relax slightly. I decided not to push further. Instead, I suggested we spend Saturday together at the park. "We can have a picnic just like we used to," I said. To my surprise, she agreed. That weekend, as we sat under a tree watching the clouds drift by, Emma finally opened up. "Sometimes I just feel like everything's too much," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "School, friends, life, it's all overwhelming." I nodded, letting her know I was listening. "It's okay to feel like that," I said, "but you don't have to handle it all on your own. I'm here always." From that day on, things started to improve. It wasn't perfect. There were still arguments, still moments of frustration, but we were making progress. Emma began sharing more with me, and I made sure to be present, to listen without judgment. I learned that being a parent isn't about solving all the problems. It's about being a constant presence, a source of love and support no matter what. Now, when I look at Emma, I see the strong, determined young woman she's becoming. She's still figuring things out, and so am I. But together, we're finding our way. If you found the story helpful or relatable, stay tuned for more. Parenting isn't easy, but sharing experiences can make it a little less lonely. That as the weeks turn into months, Emma and I started to rebuild the bond we once had. It wasn't always easy. There were days when she would retreat back into her shell, and I had to remind myself to be patient. Change doesn't happen overnight. One evening, we were sitting on the couch watching an old movie she used to love as a kid. Out of nowhere, Emma turned to me and said, "Do you ever feel like you're not good enough?" Her question caught me off guard. All the time, I admitted. But I've learned that those feelings don't define me. What matters is how I deal with them. She looked down at her hands, fidgeting with a bracelet on her wrist. Sometimes it feels like everyone expects so much from me. Teachers, friends, even you. Hearing this was like a punch to the gut. "Emma," I said softly, "I don't expect you to be perfect. I just want you to be happy and healthy. That's all I've ever wanted." Her eyes filled with tears, and for the first time in a long time, she let herself cry. I hugged her, holding her tightly as she let out everything she'd been bottling up. From that night on, I made a conscious effort to let Emma know she didn't have to carry her burdens alone. I encouraged her to talk to a school counselor and even joined her for a few sessions. It helped both of us understand each other better. Over time, Emma started to rediscover the things she loved. She joined an art club at school, something she hadn't done since middle school. Her grades improved, and she even invited a couple of friends over for dinner one night. Seeing her laugh and joke with them filled me with a sense of relief and pride. But it wasn't just Emma who was changing, I was too. I realized how much I had been holding on to my own fears and anxieties about being a single parent. I had been so focused on doing everything right that I forgot to just be there. Now, our house feels different. It's not just a place where we live, it's a home again. Emma still has her moments, like any teenager, but the walls between us are gone. We talk, we laugh, and we support each other through the ups and downs. One day, as we were walking home from the park, Emma looked at me and said, "Thanks for not giving up on me, Dad." I smiled and squeezed her shoulder. "Never," I said. "That's not what dads do. Parenting isn't about perfection. It's about showing up, even when it's hard, and loving unconditionally." And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that no matter how tough things get, there's always hope for a better tomorrow. As time went on, Emma and I fell into a rhythm, a balance of trust and independence. She became more confident, both in herself and in our relationship. She started sharing small details about her day, like the funny things her friends said or the projects she was working on at school. Each little moment felt like a victory, a step closer to the bond we once had. One Saturday morning, Emma came into the kitchen holding a flyer. "There's a volunteer program at the animal shelter," she said, her voice tentative but excited. I thought maybe I could try it. I couldn't hide my smile. "That sounds like a great idea. You love animals. I think you'd be amazing at it." She grinned, and for the first time in a long while, I saw a spark in her eyes, the same spark that used to light up when she was passionate about something. The next few weeks, she threw herself into the shelter work. Every evening, she would come home and tell me about the dogs and cats she helped care for, or the people she met. It was like watching her rediscover a part of herself that had been lost. One evening, as we sat at the table eating dinner, Emma said, I've been thinking maybe I want to study veterinary medicine someday." I nearly dropped my fork, not because I didn't believe in her, but because it was the first time in so long that she'd spoken about a future she was excited about. "That's a fantastic idea," I said, my voice full of encouragement. "And I'll do whatever I can to help you get there." We started researching schools and programs together. It became a shared goal, something we could both look forward to. Emma's grades improved even more as she threw herself into her studies, determined to make her dream a reality. Of course, there were still challenges along the way. Some days were harder than others, but we faced them together. We had learned how to communicate, how to listen without judgment, and support without pressure. One particularly difficult day, Emma came home upset after a disagreement with a friend. Instead of storming off to her room, she sat down with me and talked it through. "It's hard sometimes," she admitted, "but I feel like I can handle it now. I don't feel so alone anymore." Hearing those words was everything. It reminded me of how far we had come and how much stronger we both were because of the journey. The day Emma graduated from high school, I sat in the audience with tears in my eyes, clapping louder than anyone else. When she walked across the stage to receive her diploma, she looked out into the crowd and smiled at me. It was a moment I would never forget, a moment that proved all the struggles, all the sleepless nights had been worth it. Now, as Emma prepares for college, I can't help but feel proud, not just of her, but of us, of the bond we rebuilt and the trust we nurtured. Life isn't perfect, and it never will be, but we've learned that with love, patience, and understanding, we can face anything together. If you're a parent going through a tough time with your child, remember this: it's never too late to reconnect. Keep showing up, keep listening, and never underestimate the power of unconditional love. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If you'd like to hear more stories about navigating parenthood, or if you have your own story to share, let's keep the conversation going. Together, we can inspire and support each other.